You're listening to Project Corona.
All right, we're back.
We are back.
Welcome to Project Dark Corona.
Welcome.
So how you doing, Jason?
Pretty good. We're going to have a good show tonight, right?
Oh, it's going to be an excellent show. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Who we going to be talking to?
Mr. Todd Neiss.
All right. We're going to be talking about some Bigfoot tonight. This is going to be fun. So, normally we start off the show asking everybody to raise up the volume on that one. That's all you need to do. Yeah. All the way up. There you go. I think that's getting it because it's starting to move anyway.
Yeah.
So, we usually ask everybody to come over to our Facebook page, which is Everything Paranormal, Bigfoots, UFOs, Aliens, and Ghosts. It's a mouthful, but that's us on Facebook. And come over to visit us on our Twitter, which is Project Dark Coro. That is C-O-R-O, Project Dark Coro. And while you're on the internet there, go ahead and visit our website, which is projectdarkcorona.org. Sign up, become a member. It's free. It doesn't cost anything, right, Jason?
Yep, totally free.
Free's good. We like free. And, when we're doing these awesome shows, hello, Shell, and everybody else that's starting to come into the chat room over here on the website, you get to pick your name and everything. And when you come over and listen to the live shows every Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, then, your name and everything that you choose will be on that chat room all the time. So come join us.
Oh, yeah. And while you're on projectdarkcorona.org, if you do like the podcast and like the website, you can help support us by becoming a premium member for $2 a month.
That's not much.
Get a little premium content, some videos. It's just a little different experience.
Yeah. I like it. I like our premium membership. We've been throwing a lot of good stuff out there here lately, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I also want to remind everybody that if you go over to our website, on the front page when you first get in, on the right-hand side, you'll see where it says Vote for Us. It says it twice. So the one on top is the top 25 podcasts, and it's a monthly vote. And we've been staying in the top 5 for the last, 4 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And made it as high as number 2, but we're trying for number 1, so please come and vote for us. And the one that's down below it that says Vote for Us, though, is very special for us. We was nominated this year for 2 awards. We're nominated for Best New Podcast.
Yeah.
And we was also nominated for what, Jason?
Best Interview.
That's right, Best Interview Podcast.
Yeah.
So, we would definitely love it if everybody would go over there and vote. And there's multiple categories, a lot more than just the 2 we was, nominated for. Go ahead and, vote for some of those other guys and gals that are in those other categories. I'm sure they would appreciate it also.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, we got weird news.
I do. I found something.
All right, you know what that means. Weird news with David.
Thank you, Jason. You started laughing before I even said it today. Oh, heck, that's funny. So we're going to talk about some MUFON Symposium. They showcase some declassified information and UFOs, investigators who found it. What do you think about that?
Oh, yeah.
So this is brought to you by Mystery Wire. So it says, over the weekend, hundreds of UFO enthusiasts gathered in Las Vegas for the 2021 International MUFON Symposium. MUFON stands for the Mutual UFO Network, if no one else that's here doesn't already know that. So it's a group of people that are dedicated to researching and documenting UFO sightings and encounters from across the nation. So this weekend symposium focused on the past year's increase in military and government leaks, photographs, videos, documents, and mainstream media coverage of UAPs. Why they changed that? It's weird, huh? UAP, UFO. So, former British Ministry of Defense Nick Pope gave the keynote address on Friday night. Saturday morning, Mystery Wire's George Knapp stepped to the podium, speaking to hundreds in the audience about the government's involvement, researching and documenting UFOs and going back decades. Knapp's presentation went in depth and the often confusing acronym puzzle for the government and private groups such as BASS, NIDS, ALSAP, ATIP. Yeah. If you don't know what all those are, you don't really get into UFOs too often, I guess. But following Knapp on stage was retired Army Colonel John Alexander, who talked at length about the government's involvement in strange and often top-secret programs. Also speaking at this year's symposium was aviation author James Goodall, talking about his 24 published books and his love of aviation. Goodall served in the Air Force from 1962 to 1997, and his newest book was 75 Years at Lockheed Martin Skunk Works. That's crazy, right? 75 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they had vendors that came in. I'm cutting this short because this is just going on forever. What do you think? But there was also people there talking about paranormal stuff and holistic healing stuff and the Bible.
Wow.
And they was talking about the UFOs and stuff like that. That's in the Bible. And so I'm cutting it there because I think this thing goes forever. But yeah, I mean, if you were into UFOs, the 2021 symposium would have been the place to go because you had, I mean, Nick Pope would be awesome to go see. I'd like to see Nick Pope. Wouldn't you, Jason?
Oh, yeah.
That'd be awesome. So, what do you think, Jason?
I think we
for a break.
Take just a short break, and when we come back, we're going to bring Todd on.
I'd love to see George Knapp too. We've tried to have him on the show.
Yeah.
At one point. So, okay. We'll take us a quick break. This is something that I didn't set up, so it's my fault, everybody. And you could blame me. But I'm going to go ahead and start the break. So, you're listening to Project Dark Corona. This is David and Jason. And tonight, we're talking to Todd Neiss.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be talking, about some Bigfoot. And this is going to be an awesome show, especially if you're into Bigfoot, because this is one of the giants in Bigfooting right here. So you're getting to hear it here. So we'll be right back after these messages.
You're listening to Project Dark Corona.
Hey, this is Jeff Reagan with the band Catalyst. You're listening to Project Dark Corona with David Reagan and Jason Scott.
Do you like the paranormal, cryptids, and folklore? Then join us at Project Dark Corona on Spreaker. We have a live show on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. We interview the best in all subjects of paranormal and strange. Also, join us on ProjectDarkCorona.org. When you sign up, become a member, you'll get to hear the latest blogs and episodes. Thanks, and remember, Project Dark Corona Podcasts.
everybody. This is Matt Sieber from EastTennesseeBigfoot.org. You're listening to David and Jason at Project Dark Corona Radio.
All right, we're back from that quick little break.
Nice little break.
Oh, yeah. Tonight, like we said, we're going to be talking with Todd Neiss. I think that's how you say his last name. Todd's retired from active duty Army after 20 years of service. Voluntarily deployed into Iraq in 2010 through 11. He's the recipient of 5 Army Achievement Medals, 2 Army Commendations, and the Meritorious Service Medal. He was honorably discharged in May of 2019 and is a internationally recognized Bigfoot researcher. He's included numerous investigations and expeditions, featured in more than 25 television appearances, 40 plus radio, online interviews, and dozens of books and periodicals. He also is the founder and president of the American Primate Conservancy.
Yes.
So we go ahead and bring Todd on. How you doing, Todd?
Hey guys, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here, and
Yes.
thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you for your service. Absolutely.
Oh, the honor's mine. I appreciate that.
So, I guess the cliche thing to usually start it off with is what got you into Bigfoot? Because a lot of times with your background being in the military as long as you was and stuff like that, it's usually pretty much black and white. There's not much room for cryptids.
Well, to be honest with you, I was not a believer, even though I did grow up here in the Pacific Northwest all my life. And even to this day, I live in the Cascade Mountains just east of Portland at the base of Mount Hood. And
we go through there all the time.
Great research area. But I really wasn't interested in TV shows or books on the subject at all. I just chalked it up to a great campfire story to, get kids all excited. But that all changed for me rather abruptly on April 3rd, 1993. At that time, I was a combat engineer in the Oregon Army National Guard and a sergeant at the time. And for your listeners that aren't aware of what combat engineers do, our mission is basically mobility, counter mobility. We get our guys through where they need to go, and we keep the enemy from using the route that they wish to take. And a lot of that involves explosives in the form of landmines, C4, ammonium nitrate, dynamite, you name it, Syntec, and just depending on what the mission is. And on that particular day, it was Saturday, we were tasked to go up into the mountains in the Coast Range east of Seaside, Oregon, and do these explosions, fairly controlled, being that they were, we used these these gravel quarries that the owners of the property used for whenever they, punch roads into new areas and whatnot. But we were given full run of the area that day, and we had 3 missions, each at a different rock quarry. And so we had accomplished the first 2, moved on to the 3rd and final blast site. Should be around, I want to say, about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Beautiful sunny day for April in the Coast Range. And this last one was a cratering charge, which involved about 250 pounds of ammonium nitrate that we'd been soaking in diesel fuel for several hours beforehand. And a cratering charge is usually designed to, blow a road in half and deny the enemy the use of that avenue. So, just standard operating procedure. You ignite the fuses, you get in your rigs, and you convoy to a safe distance where you await the explosion, and then you can go back and check your work and clean up any mess you left. So we had got the fuses lit. We had a convoy of 4 vehicles, 2 Humvees up front, troop transport in the 3rd position, and then the commander's Humvee bringing up the rear. I happen to be a passenger sitting behind the driver of the 2nd Humvee. And being that I didn't have to focus on the road, I had the window down and I was focusing on the countryside. This is an area that I had hunted extensively for deer and elk, and so it was just natural for me to just kind of scan the landscape to see what I could see, and what I saw was a heck of a lot more than I bargained for. As our convoy rounded this slow sweeping right turn, the 2nd blast site, which again we had detonated perhaps an hour or so before that with a couple 100 pounds of C4, it comes into view, and what struck me is I see these 3 figures standing right out in the quarry, which was not standard operating procedure. We don't let people wander about onesie twosies. Everybody has to be accounted for, and yet here's these 3 what I initially thought were people standing out there, and technically they were within range of being injured from the blast that we had cooking off behind us. So, I just initially I'm thinking, what the hell are those people doing down there? And I mean, before I even finished the thought, the more I looked at it, I realized I'm not looking at people at all. They're, these things were jet black. No clothing to be seen, which I would have been able to see from that distance. They were huge. Again, 3 of them, all 3 standing in a line looking at our convoy coming down the hill. And what really threw me was the silhouette that they presented. It was not human by any means. Aside from the size difference, the arms, I recall, stretched well below their knees. The legs were disproportionately too long as well. But it was the activity that they were involved in. I'll just describe, if I could, that the largest of the three stood in the middle, and I estimated its height around 9 feet.
Wow.
That's tall.
That's huge.
Excuse me. Yeah, and then the two on either side were not small at all, but in comparison, they probably came up to the shoulders of the largest one. And while that largest one stood there like a statue, excuse me, we got a lot of fire smoke in the air.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so the one in the middle stood there like a statue, but these two on either side of it were exhibiting this swaying motion, shifting weight from one foot to the other, if you would, and rocking from side to side. And in the process, these long pendulous arms are swinging well below their knees. And they did this the entire time I watched them. Obviously not a human trait at all.
Right.
But when I say the entire time I watched them, we're not talking, 2 to 3 seconds, something ran in front of my car. I think it was a Bigfoot sort of scenario. I watched them for nearly half a minute, at least 25 seconds. And the entire time I'm looking at them, these two are doing the Watusi or whatever you want to call it. But they were doing this rocking back and forth. And then, like I say, about 25 seconds later, we took a turn. We lost sight of them. I just slumped back in my seat and tried to, you can only imagine I got 100 questions swimming through my head at the time, and
Right.
Not the least of which is, the thought that I'd been hunting out there many times by myself. I lived in that area at the time, and I had no idea these things had been there the entire time.
Wow.
So that kind of spooked me a little bit. But anyway, we get down to the staging area, which wasn't that far away, and I just instinctively jumped out of the vehicle and ran back in the direction we had just come from in hopes of getting another view of them. And I went as far as I dared because, again, this 100% accountability means everybody has to be, within sight of the unit. So I don't know. I went a little over 100 yards away, and I'm standing on my tiptoes, trying to look off in the distance, and this dang berm, if you will, was just tall enough to keep me from seeing that quarry again. But it was while I was standing there, I heard somebody yell my name, and I looked over, and it's Sergeant Martin, and he says, "What are you looking at?" Well, I said nothing, and he just kept coming toward me, smoking on a cigarette. And he got right up to me and said, "I don't suppose you saw what I saw down at that second blast site." And I said, "I don't know, Jeff. What did you see?" Yeah, I wasn't going to say it in case he saw something else, but I kind of had my hopes up. And then sure enough, he said, "I saw 3 dark, hair-covered, huge, Bigfoot, I guess." And of course, at that point, I said, "Yeah, I saw them too, Jeff." And, it was nice, to have that corroboration, although I really didn't need it. I mean, I can see them as clearly today as it were yesterday. But it was kind of cool to know somebody else shared that experience, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it doesn't quite end there because the very next drill, again, being a traditional guardsman, we drill 1 weekend a month. We all have 9 to 5 Monday through Friday jobs, but anyway, so the next one would have been early May, and surprisingly enough, we had 2 more soldiers come forward and admit to seeing what Jeff and I had seen. So it's kind of a unique sighting, in so much that multiple animal sightings are pretty rare. Multiple eyewitness sightings are fairly rare. And then you incorporate the activity that we were doing at the time, basically blowing up the forest throughout the day. It just makes for a fairly unique sighting, and it's just gotten traction. And but I will say this: I cannot begin to tell you how hard it is to even comprehend that those 25 seconds. I was 34 years old at the time. That 25-second period of my entire life at that time has changed the direction of my life ever since. And, I don't regret it. Seeing them is kind of a blessing and a curse.
Right.
But it'll eat at you. And so researching for me is kind of cathartic in that way. It kind of helps me to, cope with what I saw and feel like, there's a purpose for my having that sighting. I mean, we could have been there a minute later or a minute earlier, or I could have been engaged in a conversation with somebody else and totally missed the whole thing. But I can't help but think there is a purpose for my having seen them. And so I've been spending over 28 plus years in pursuit of them and knowledge about them. And ultimately, I hope to play a part in protecting them once they are officially recognized.
Now, do you believe that that's going to happen sooner than later? As far as
I think,
go ahead.
Frankly, I think it's inevitable. Something that large, even in small numbers, relatively small numbers. I'm kind of amazed it hasn't happened already. I mean, we talk about discovery. There's a big difference, a gap between discovery and recognition, official recognition. I mean, discovery has been happening for hundreds of years. If you want to go back with Native Americans, you can go back tens of thousands of years. So the discovery is going on all the time, and hardly a week goes by that I don't hear of another sighting.
Wow.
And bear in mind too that probably 9 out of 10 people that have sightings, they keep it to themselves. There's the fear of ridicule, people questioning your integrity or your sanity even. And it's kind of sad because it does put folks in a awkward position to having seen something so amazing and not being able to openly discuss it.
Yeah.
And that was an issue for me too, but, at the time, my Monday through Friday job was I was a vice president of a shipping company in Portland, a family man and a non-commissioned officer. And I really had to think long and hard about saying something that may bring my credibility and my reputation into call. But, the more I thought about it, it was like, this is way bigger than me. And
yeah,
for me not to share what I saw, something scientifically, something historically important, was just, it wouldn't be fair to them or to the situation itself. And so I eventually opened up publicly, and I don't regret it.
When you was telling your story, and you was talking about how you had hunted there a lot, and then here's these, 3 things. One of them, you said it's probably somewhere around 9 foot tall. And did that make you kind of think, like, what could actually be out there that I just don't know about while I'm hunting, while I'm in the woods?
Well, certainly after the fact, seeing something like that is really a traumatic event in anyone's life. It's everything, we're taught to believe that everything you should know is taught to you, and if it isn't, it doesn't exist. And so it really challenges, it opens your mind, like you said. I think what really struck me is going out before having that sighting, being out there hunting or hiking or fishing or what have you. I can't help but wonder how many times that I've come across, evidence, but evidence of nothing is nothing. It's something that you put out of your mind that you might dismiss this, interesting large foot-shaped track as just an interesting hole in the ground, and walk right over it, if not through it, because in your mind your mind isn't rationalizing on that level.
Yeah.
But I say that in hindsight because having gone out now for 28 years with an open mind, probably even more so than somebody who hasn't witnessed that. I'm not going out hoping, believing they exist. I know they do. And when you're put in that position, the signs are out there. I rarely get disappointed going out and looking that I don't find some sort of sign or find some evidence. But again, prior to that sighting, I would have just walked right on by it. So, it opens your mind. The Bigfoot, that's plenty for me. So do I go out thinking, okay, we'll check the Bigfoot block and what the hell else is out there? No. I got enough on my plate with these guys.
I guarantee it. I know I had a sighting. I remember, I think it was towards the end of last year, middle of last year, sometime. And I'm a truck driver by trade. Me and my wife are. We team drive, and we were actually going your way. We were on I-90 in Washington, and it was about, I don't know, I think it was about 10, almost 11 o'clock at night, and driving towards the West Coast, and all of a sudden, now it was kind of foggy, just a little bit, maybe 3 cars ahead of you or so. It was a light fog. You could see at least 3 or 4 cars ahead of you, and I'm just cruising along down through there. All of a sudden, right out of the median, comes this thing was big. I mean, it come across the median, went across the road and up the other side before I even got to it in the big truck, and it moved so fast. It was crazy, but the size of it, that's the one thing that was like, wow, I mean, the thing was so big that I swear I could have stopped the truck. I could have rolled down my window and it could have walked up to me and we could have had a face-to-face conversation with me up in that truck. I mean, that thing was huge. And then how big it was and how fast it moved was another thing that was just all, it's all, you're just like, wow. That thing, they can really move.
Well, it's funny you should say that. I had talked with a couple, a husband-wife team that was driving. They were coming back from California on 397, just north of Cave Falls, and they saw up ahead of them And this is Central Oregon. They saw up ahead of them what looked like some guy coming out of the brush onto the road wearing a backpack. Again, this is at a distance, maybe a quarter mile or so. And the closer they got to it, they realized, A, that wasn't a dude, and that was not a backpack. And like you, he said, that thing stopped on the other side of the road. He hit the brakes and actually started to jackknife a little bit. And he said, we came to a stop. He said, that thing was tall enough to look into his cab.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not surprised.
That's how big it was. I swear that I could have just stopped and he could have walked right up. I could have rolled down the window and we could have talked. I mean, he was a big dude. And, I think that they're a master of their surroundings. They seem to be, because, I mean, when he did this, he did it right at that, where your lights hit that fog. And I mean, he was just right there at that fog. He wasn't inside where I could see really well. It was just right at that fog line where he went across so fast. And that definitely shows intelligence.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I have tried to determine what their intelligence level is.
Mm-hmm.
And there's several things come to mind. Number one, when we talk about intelligence quotient or IQ, we're talking about things along the lines of arithmetic and writing and academics. And I would dare say that if you broaden that definition of IQ to include, say, woodsmanship, land navigation, that sort of thing, they're the masters out there. That's their territory, and they definitely own the night. But I think back to my sighting where we were putting up some big explosions. Maybe 2,000 to 3,000 feet up. These are big explosions. Yeah. And you would think any animal, deer, elk, bear, cougar, raccoon, squirrel, is going to go 360 degrees away from that area, not knowing that, there's not more of that coming.
Right.
It just stands to reason.
Yep.
But here it was, an hour, maybe just a little over an hour after we blew up that area, and these things are standing right there, right in the middle of the blast zone. Certainly not a human would even consider that, because, again, you don't know what our schedule is. You don't know that we don't have, secondary explosions ready to go. And it just kind of defies behavior that you'd think most animals would do.
Yeah.
So why would they do that? And I keep coming back to curiosity. And it's like, let's say you're sitting at home having a drink on the porch, and all of a sudden a jet airliner falls out of the sky and crashes a mile from your house. I mean, the ground shakes. You see a fireball, there's smoke, you hear the explosion. You're going to be in shock for a good minute or so. But this is, after all, your neighborhood, and something catastrophic's happened. And whether you are drawn to it to try to render aid to any possible survivors or injured people, or just out of morbid curiosity, we as humans, we're going to be drawn to that, once we realize that, there's not a bunch of other planes falling out of the sky. And I think it's kind of the same thing. But to me, to have that level of curiosity, the need to know, intelligence, that level of curiosity that can override what you'd think would be an innate fear of going right into the blast zone.
Yeah.
They did it. They did it. And for me, that just says, wow. Their need to know, their need for knowledge, to understand what happened and what was going on, was strong enough to override any sort of fear.
Right.
So again, they may have a higher IQ than we do, for that matter, but it's just not the same subjects that we test on.
Right. Well, Einstein had a famous saying about IQs and stuff, and he says, if you test a fish on how well he climbs a tree, he's never going to be smart, right? So,
yeah.
Yeah. So, and his point to the matter was that the IQ test that we take today, or even back then, went across certain subjects, and he says, well, what if they're not good at these subjects, but what if they're good at, A, B, C, what if they're good at, flying a plane, or what if they're good at something else? I mean, math may be their strong suit, and anything else is, goes by the wayside. So I think,
well, yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I just think there's different categories of intelligence.
Yep.
And they are vastly more intelligent than we are when it comes to survival, when it comes to hunting and gathering, when it comes to just being as robust as they are and having been able to survive in conditions we wouldn't have a chance in.
Right. And at the same time, while doing all that, staying away from humans. That in itself is brilliant. I mean,
well,
I have deer that walk in my yard every day,
True. But this is where I think things get a little interesting, because I think their their curiosity is probably their Achilles heel, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Because they are very curious of us. They have been. They've been watching us for literally millennia, and surely they've learned a few things from us. I can only imagine the early Native Americans probably learned a lot from watching them.
Yeah.
But that curiosity is like I say, that's their Achilles heel, because they try as they might, and we have no idea how many times they see us, and we have no idea they're there. But they do on occasion expose themselves. But you're right. As soon as they do, their MO is just to pretty much leave the area once they realize they've been compromised. But they do spy on us, if you will. And they're very good at it. They're extremely good at camouflage. They're very good at standing still under those circumstances, and they're great at not being detected. But they do get caught once in a while. I go back to that curiosity that is their undoing.
Yeah. Do you think that the a lot of the color differences that you get from where your area is down to here in Tennessee and stuff like that, do you think a lot of that has to do with what you was talking about camouflage and being able to disappear and hide?
Well, I think they're just as diverse as us, and unfortunately, people have a tendency to want to personify these things, and that's natural. I mean, because there's nothing out there that comes close to us like these things do in terms of physiology and what have you. But I dare say that the sad thing is, in the process, we tend to stereotype them, and I think they're as diverse as you and I. I mean, hell, just go to a shopping mall and sit there and watch people go by. How many different hair colors and body shapes and sizes and different personalities.
Right.
You've got good people. We've got some very bad people out there, and I don't think they're any different. It makes me cringe when people try to describe their demeanor in a stereotypical way, because, like I said, there's probably good Sasquatch out there, friendly Sasquatch. There's some bad ones out there, and everything in between. And let's face it, even a good person can have a bad day. There may be circumstances, like if they've got food around or they've got offspring around, but things can get pretty dicey real quick. So,
right.
I would just encourage people to don't make any assumptions as to what their behavior is, because it can be, you could have 10 different encounters and they can all be different.
Yeah, that's something, because as far as that goes, I've noticed a lot of people say, well, these group over in this area seem to be meaner than the group over in this other area. And so, if you go over into into this area, you're more likely to get attacked versus, another area. And so that falls right into what you was just saying. But, I think what you said is, is right on, where why can't they have, the same as us, where, hey, I just had a bad day today and you just cut me off, you just, I want to yell at you, throw a rock at you or something. But,
well, it comes down to a combination of personalities, individual personalities, and situations, circumstances at the time. So, yeah, I just err on the side of caution. If you do encounter them, to not pursue them. Frankly, I think the best thing you can do is ignore them.
Right.
Watch them in your peripheral vision. Don't engage in a staring contest. For God's sake, don't run. But just try to maintain some sort of composure and realize that from the time you engage one of these things, it's their game. They control circumstances. And you just got to kind of let things happen. But, I would say just act like you don't know they're there, and their chances are they're going to stay there longer, as long as you're not, glaring at them.
Right. Do you think that has a lot to do with the way they act? Like a lot of people go up and they say that when they're doing trying to, I won't say hunt, I guess, but go up there and just see if they could get a sighting of Bigfoot or whatever. But they said a lot of times they'll just sit around a campfire and break out a guitar and just play guitar or, do things like that right there. And then a lot of times, like you said, the way that they're just like curious about it seems to just kind of draw them in, instead of walking around yelling and screaming and knocking on trees and stuff like that. That seems to keep them more standoff, with them.
Well, frankly, I think the wood knock thing, and I've studied it for a while. I have a theory about that, and it's counterproductive, and you'll understand in a minute, for people to go out there and try to tree knock and stuff, because I honestly think the tree knocks are not for our consumption, but rather for other creatures to basically be made aware that, humans are in the area. So to go out there and announce yourself like that is, like I say, I think kind of counterproductive.
That makes sense.
But you don't know what they mean when they vocalize, and yet people go out there with recordings and try to blast them out there.
Yeah.
You don't know you don't even have any idea what their intent is, and it may not be what they want to hear. And same thing with the wood knocking and stuff. I think, I talked with Dr. Henry Fehrenbach, who was a primatologist that used to live here in Oregon, and he said if it were him, he would just probably take a seat, stop walking, take a seat, sit on the ground, and just, like say, kind of ignore them, keep an eye on them. But he said I'd take a pine cone and play with it, or draw something in the dirt or whatever. Just act like you don't really care that they're there. Okay. And there may be something to that. I mean, he goes back to dealing with gorillas in Africa, and he says, if you just mind your own business, there's a good chance they may just come on in and check you out.
Yeah. Which
is probably the best thing. Just try to act as natural as you can.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, they are, they're not domesticated, so they're not really, out there for their good time. I mean, that's where they live, and that's what they do. So, I mean, they're going to be out there, and then they're going to be more wondering why you were out there in their territory. How do you feel about like the samurai chatter and stuff like that? Do you think that they have their own speech?
I do think they have a fundamental vocabulary, and that also is going to be a local dialect, if you will. So what Ron Moorhead, who you're referring to with the samurai chatter, what he recorded in High Sierras may not make any sense up here in Oregon.
Gotcha.
Different plans, you know what I mean? So, but I've heard enough. Ron's a very good friend of mine, and he's allowed me to listen to the original cassette recordings that Al Berry taped while they were up there several different times. And I was fortunate enough in 1998, I put together an expedition near where I had my sighting at the base of Saddle Mountain. And we were up there about 8 days. We had full access. We had a master key to all the gates. So we would go through a gate, lock it behind us, and I think the time we got where we were at, we had locked 3 gates behind us. So we know we were alone. And by we, I had the fortune of having Ron Moorhead and Peter Byrne on my team.
Wow.
And yeah, it was amazing experience. But Ron had brought all those original tapes, and by that time he had only came out with that first Sierra Sounds. And after hearing the samurai chatter and hearing some other clips that were taken off the raw tapes, I told Ron, I said, you got a lot of good stuff here, and there's a lot. As far as I'm concerned, there's some stuff on here better than what you put out the first time. And I guess he listened to me because he ended up coming out with that second one, and that's where you hear the samurai chatter and some other really conversational tracks where it's obvious a conversation is going on between more than one. And it's really, really fascinating to listen to. Recently, I went up, in my most recent investigation was right up here on Mount Hood, off the Lolo Pass. There's a horse camp in this wilderness area, and I had hooked up with some horsemen that go up there regularly to exercise and train their horses in the steep terrain. They do a lot of endurance racing. Oh. And they had a number of sightings. They had rocks thrown out in the trail in front of them. They've heard conversations and whatnot, but in a language they couldn't understand, in the middle of nowhere where there were no people. One night, I was up there with this couple and Joe Beelart, and everybody had gone to bed. I was staying up late, and I walked off to the edge of the campground. There were no campfires, no lights. Everybody was sound asleep. And I heard faintly outside of the camp, I heard this conversation going on at 2:30 in the morning.
Really?
And yeah, and it was weird to listen to because it didn't sound like any language I ever heard, but you can tell there were at least two different individuals engaged in some sort of a conversation.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it recorded, but I sat there for, a good 20 minutes listening to this conversation like, what the heck is that? So, yeah, I guess in answer to your question, I do think they have a rudimentary and more than likely a localized language, if you will. And it makes sense. I mean, there's a number of ways to communicate. The tree knocks, the whistles, the roars, which I've heard, the screams. But I think they do have a vocabulary.
So, what do you think about, do you think that these things have a large area that they migrate from and to, or do you think that they stay pretty localized for winter, for summer, that they almost like how the Native Americans used to do, like they'd move to one area for winter food and shelter, and then another for summer?
Well, I do think they have a range, but everything's relative because a range for us and a range for them are two different things. One of the things that Dr. Fehrenbach did was in comparing these to other great apes, for instance, we know what the average caloric intake is for a full-size silverback gorilla.
Right.
They need X number of calories every day. And then he would also look at the food resources available. And of course, that's seasonal as well. But he estimated by doing these extrapolations from, say, a mountain gorilla to these things, and then, multiplying it by obviously different sizes, that a single animal would need almost 60 square miles to roam in within a year. Again, moving from different food sources as they become more and more available. So, but, a good hiker might be able to put out, a 20-mile hike in a day. But these things could easily cover 60 miles in that same period of time. But I do think they're fairly regional, these clans, if you will.
Okay.
But when I think migration, I'm thinking, point A to point B to point C. I think that they move about in a certain area throughout the year. Again, just depending on what food sources are available. Obviously, there's a lot more vegetation, the forms of mushrooms and berries and nuts and other foliage that they can take advantage of during the summer. And I think as winter rolls around, just like a bear, they're gonna put on some fat before winter that they can live off of, and then they're going to probably be more inclined to revert to more of a carnivore type of diet during the winter. For instance, we've got some, at least over here, we've got some very predictive fish runs.
Mm-hmm.
We've got summer and winter steelhead. We have fall and spring Chinook, and they just like clockwork come through these river systems at specific times. And the bears know that, and I'm sure these things do as well. And they've been spotted harvesting salmon. An interesting encounter that I heard about is during the summer. Gentleman was fishing on a tributary to the Nehalem River called Cold Creek, and there's a trail that would take you up Cold Creek. And at one point, there was a footbridge that crossed over the creek to the other side, and then the trail would continue upstream. And he had gotten as far as that bridge. He was about halfway across the creek when he looked upstream and saw what he assumed was a bear squatted down or sitting there on the shoreline and rolling rocks left and right. And there occasionally it would stop, and then he just sat there, and something just didn't look right. And that was confirmed when he saw this creature literally palming cantaloupe-sized rocks and lifting them out of the water and setting them aside. Now, a bear, not having an opposable thumb, is not going to be able to do that.
Right.
So now he's really curious. He's like, this thing is picking up rocks and moving them. And just about that time, this creature looked downstream and saw him on that bridge. And as soon as it realized that, again, it had been compromised, it got up and just very nonchalantly walked into the forest, and that was that. Well, he finally got up enough nerve to go toward where he had seen it, and when he got to where it was there alongside the bank of the creek, the whole shoreline was just littered with crawdad shells. So,
Wow.
Again, a seasonal treat, if you will, but they know when they're available, and they take advantage of it. Even along the coast, there are particular times of the year where you can harvest shellfish, specifically when the water temperatures drop around late September, early October, and that dioxin or red tide dies off. Then Native Americans time that shellfish harvest at that time of year. They say bears will come out there and dig up clams or cockles, and the Bigfoot as well. We did a kind of an experiment back in September of 2016. I don't know if you guys have heard of Operation Sea Monkey.
Yeah.
Yes.
That ring a bell?
Yes.
Well, that was based on.
Now you're going to go back and actually, because when the story you're about to tell everybody, was just kind of a trial run, right? And you're actually planning on going back at some point and doing this again, right?
Well, so when we founded the American Primate Conservancy in 2015, we put together some color trifolds that discuss our mission statement and our objectives, and then along the back it talks about different phases of research. When we started this, both myself and my wife were working full time. I in the military and her with the state government. So phase one was kind of that period of time where we didn't have a whole lot of excess time other than vacation time, whatnot, to go about and do some, longer term stuff. But in phase two, once we retired, our intent was to take a large vessel. And at that time, in 2015, we lived aboard a 42-foot motor yacht in Portland on the Columbia River, and it's certified for coastal cruising. And so our intent was, once we retired, we were going to take our boat up there into the British Columbia and spent an entire summer up there. Well, I happened to have a First Nations gentleman come visit us at our home here up on Mount Hood, and he got a hold of that brochure, and he read that, and he's like, dude, we got to go like pretty quick. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, it's the shellfish season's coming into, it's coming to there, and this is when they have found these Sasquatch out on the shores, digging for clams, mussels, cockles, and whatnot. And I said, well, I can't just take off for months at a time. I'm active duty military. Even if I had that much leave, they're not going to let me disappear for 3 months. And he goes, well, fine, we could do it for like a week or whatever. But he says this, and this was Labor Day, ironically, in 2016. So the first week of September or so. He says, we need to get out the last week of September, maybe into October, and, put together a team and go see what we can find out. And I thought, as a trial run, as a kind of a scouting mission, if you will, to just kind of validate the area we were going to. I said, well, you're talking 3 weeks, and A, we need a boat. B, we need a team. C, we're going to need some money. And he's like, well, don't worry about a boat. I know people up in Campbell River. I'll secure us a boat. You work on putting a team together and raising money or whatever. But initially I told everybody that, we had a 6-man team. I said, just, if you want to go on this thing, you better have $500 or $600 in your pocket, because we have to pay for the diesel. We have to pay for food and other things. And so I set about to put together a team, and we had a great team, aside from myself and my First Nations bush guide that knew the area very well. We had Ron Moorhead again. Thomas Steenberg, who you may know, he's written several books on Bigfoot. He's from British Columbia. Gunnar Monson, who not only produces Monster X, but he's the owner of the Sasquatch Coffee Company, and works with the
company.
Oh yeah, good stuff.
Oh.
Got to check it out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to check that out.
Yeah, they've got a Facebook page. They got like 11 varieties, and it is top of the line coffee. It's really, really worth it. But anyway, so I digress. We had 2 videographers with us as well, professional videographers, and I think Captain rounded out 8 in total. 8 of us slept aboard this 50-foot motor yacht, or actually it was a trawler, but it was fixed up like a yacht, called the Clottawa. I did my first ever GoFundMe. In fact, my last ever GoFundMe. But I thought, what the heck? And I was very impressed that in 3 weeks we had raised nearly $7,000 for the trip. So
wow,
I was able to tell everybody, keep your wallet in your pocket, because I think we've got most of this covered, and we did. I think all but maybe 1,500 or whatever. But so we took off from Campbell River. We spent 6 days, 5 nights. We traveled 140 miles into what's known as the Broughton Archipelago, which is a cluster of over 100 uninhabited islands. And by uninhabited, I mean by people, because they are inhabited by grizzly bears, black bears, wolf, you name it. Saw plenty of that. But our MO was to basically anchor off a different island every night. We had one of our associates, the Olympic Project, who was kind enough to lend us a very expensive FLIR thermal camera. And we'd take 2-hour shifts throughout the night. We'd anchor about 100 yards offshore, and we had 2 Zodiacs that we could motor to shore with. We'd at every island we'd go out on the beach. We would look for game trails. We'd set up game cameras. I have a very unique toy in my toy box, which is seismic ground sensors.
Oh,
these are military issue sensors. You put a spike in the ground, and it has about a 6-foot lead to a transmitter, and it will pick up vibration in the ground from anything walking, depending on the substrate, up to 25 to 50 yards away.
wow.
And send a silent signal back to a receiver. So, we put those up. And then we would, like I say, we'd go back to the trawler, and we would take shifts all night just manning that thermal camera and watching for any activity on the shore. We did capture different animals out on the shore. We obviously didn't get the grand prize, but it was a good experience. It was a great exploratory initial expedition, and I do intend to return and spend an entire summer up there, because there's a lot of promise up in that area. We did find some sign, and a lot of history. I just remember going through the Johnston Straits, and our native friend Tom Seawood had rolled out a marine chart, laminated marine chart, and was putting red dots on several places along our route where he could tell you an entire story that goes with each dot, and he had at least 24 dots on that map just in the route that we were heading.
Wow.
So a lot of history, and the resources are definitely there. And if you want cover and concealment, it's perfect. I mean, if I wanted to just disappear, I could go up those islands and you'd never know I was there. So, and they're close enough together too that these chain of islands that you can swim between them.
Really?
Oh yes. Yes, in fact, the farthest island north we went to was Comoran Island. A lot of people know it as Alert Bay is the main town there on that island. It's all native, and it's a good 2 miles of open ocean from the next island south. And Fish and Wildlife actually took footage of 2 young grizzly bears swimming that 2-mile stretch out to Comoran Island, out in the open ocean. And they made it to the island. And the natives said they didn't remember the last time they ever had any bear on that island. They ultimately removed them, but yeah. So if a bear can swim 2 miles in the open ocean, I'm sure Bigfoot wouldn't have any trouble hopscotching between these other islands. And then, like I say, there's tons of game. Grizzly bears is what got me. I've never been that close to them or seen tracks that size. I mean, it was pretty crazy.
Wow. And you was only there for what, a week?
Yeah.
Wow.
About a week.
So do you?
Well, I had asked.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd asked the captain after we had been to 4 other islands. I said, "Do you know I want an island that has a river coming off of it, because I'm thinking with the combination of fish runs on the river combined with the shellfish on the shore, it might up our odds a little bit." And he located this one island. We anchored in what they call Opal Bay. took a Zodiac to shore. We had 4 of us. It was Gunner, Aaron, our cameraman, myself, and Tom Steenberg. And they dropped us off on this jetty because the approach to the island was extremely shallow, way out. But somebody had built a jetty so at the mouth of this river. So they just we unloaded at the end of the jetty and walked the jetty to the beach. And as soon as we got to the sand, I'm looking at bear tracks bigger than a dinner plate. Wow. And very deep in the sand, and not just one set, but several sets, and wolf tracks. And I get a little nervous. I mean, I had a shotgun, but it was like, guys, we're not alone. Let's get these cameras up and the seismic sensors and get the heck out of here.
Right.
So we got two cameras up pretty quick, and of course our heads on a swivel. And the captain comes over to the radio. Gunner had our radio, and the captain comes over and says, "Hey, how's it going?" Gunner goes, "Oh, it's going pretty good." He says, "We got both the cameras up. We just need to put in the seismic sensors." He goes, "Oh, very good, very good. Who's got the shotgun?" Neiss. Why? Well, you might want to load it. There's a bar coming. So Gunner comes over to me and tells me what he just heard. I'm like, so 2 things shocked me. One is there's a bear coming. Number 2, I thought the shotgun was loaded.
Oh, Lord.
So sure enough, I opened the breech and there's nothing in the chamber, nothing in the feed tube. And I'm like, but my faithful native friend had given me one of those kind of vinyl zipper bags you get money in at the bank.
Yeah.
And he had it loaded with some slugs. So I quickly open that and scramble, looking through there, and all I see is rust.
Oh, no.
There's not a speck of brass showing on any of these slugs. And I'm like, no way. I know he didn't use those shells, but they had been on the boat so long, they had corroded. So I'm like looking for the least corroded shell to put directly in the chamber, in the breech. And I tried. Took me about 4 or 5 attempts to finally get the damn breech to lock with one slug in it, which, A, I don't know if it's even going to fire, as bad a shape of it was. And B, I don't know if I can even extract it. It's just so jammed in there. But I just went ahead and loaded the rest of the feed tube, and we're like, they're all looking at me like, okay, expedition leader, what do we do now? And I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, I think I saw this on National Geographic. I think we want to like spread out and make lots of noise. Because here's the real dilemma, was that the bear was on the beach coming towards us, but the jetty was about 8 feet tall, and we can't see over the jetty.
Oh.
And, we're like, do we draw straws and see who climbs up on the jetty and see, find out that grizzly is just right there or what? Well, so we all spread out, but nobody's saying anything, and we're not in a big hurry to meet the bear at the jetty, so we're kind of waiting and hoping we get an update. And I look at everybody, I go, hey, we need to make noise. And I don't know if you know Tom Steenberg, but it was like, I can't make this stuff up. He just suddenly belts out one of the theme songs from Jungle Book. The bare necessities, the simple bare necessity. At the top of his lungs, and we all just kind of looked at him. We're like, really, Tom? And it was funny because we were all so nervous. We just all chimed in and just sang with him. Anyway, long story short, we finally got the Zodiac to come back. Well, we called him up, at one point, can we get an update on the status of the bear? And they came back with, we're trying to film the bear. Radio silence out. And I'm thinking, in the time it took you to say that, you could have said 100 yards, 200 yards. No. I don't know what they're doing. All I know is they're, doing some National Geographic versus Face to Death Part 10, and we're the stars. But we got off the island, obviously, and the funny thing we had to retrieve that equipment the next day. What was interesting, though, was both cameras were not only seen or smelled, I don't know, but they were detected by the bears. And they screwed with both of them. One of them, they literally ripped off a tree.
Wow. And
jumped up and down on it. I had them all set for video, so we got some great video footage of that. They knocked another one askew. And so we had gotten video on both cameras of two grizzlies, and they weren't the big male coming down our direction. It was a big female sow and I think a yearling or something. And then we had a timber wolf come by shortly after that, and I'll be damned if he didn't look right at the camera. So, yeah. So, and then you look at the timestamp on the SIM cards, on the pictures, and they were onto those cameras in less than 2.5 hours after we left the island. It was that quick that they found them and messed with them. So,
wow.
Something to keep in mind when you're putting out game cameras. I don't care if they're painted camouflage or whatnot. Animals can see them; they can detect them, and sometimes they'll mess with them. But we're working on different technologies to make them a little harder to see.
You think that could be the fact that they can see in spectrums that we can't, and a lot of those things are set off by IR or have IR, and can be set off with that infrared too or something. You think they could see it and that's what draws them to it?
My guess is they probably smell it more than anything because we've been handling it, and it's an odd smell to begin with. And also the shape. Most cameras are somewhat rectangular, and it's a very unnatural shape, even though it's camouflaged. The IR thing, well, we can speculate about that all we want, but it's just comes down to that. The IR, that you're referring to, though, is only triggered when the camera's triggered.
Right.
You'll have IR lights that'll, very dim red lights that'll come on and just put off enough infrared light to make a decent picture or video. So by the time they see the IR, it'd be a little late, I would think. But sitting there in a passive detection status, I don't think they really put off any sort of a light. But they might put off a sound. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe a high frequency sound. I don't know. But it kind of blew. I eat a little crow on that because I always thought, people say, oh, they see the cameras and they avoid them. Well, they may see the cameras, but the question is, do they know what their function is? And I highly doubt they do. It's just something that's probably out of place and a little intimidating for them.
Right. And it's got people smell on it, like you said before. So, they're like, whoa. Yeah,
I've had people tell me, that they try to mask that smell. One native fellow told me that he would take the leaves off of a western red cedar and put it in a blender and add water, make some sort of concoction that he would coat them with, and at least that way you're eliminating the smell. And then we've got some great people out there like Doug Hadjasek, who's not only a wonderful writer, producer, and director, but he's an inventor. And this guy is like a Renaissance man. He's you may know him for Monster Quest. He directed that whole those seasons of Monster Quest, as well as he did Sasquatch Legends Meet Science with Dr. Meldrum and some others, and we are in the process of making Legends Meet Science 2, which will be coming out this year.
Wow.
I'll be participating in that as well, but it's going to be a 2-hour series with a lot of new techniques and strategies and inventions.
Is that going to be on Discovery Plus?
My understanding is they've picked up a network, but we're not discussing it at this point. Right. But it'll, it's suffice to say it'll be somewhere along Discovery, History Channel, Travel Channel, something like that.
Awesome. But
yeah, so looking forward to working on that project. But he's working with some camera stuff that's phenomenal. He's actually camouflaging cameras, not only in like rocks to make it look like a rock or make it look like a plant, but even installing some cameras in like artificial squirrels, animals.
Okay.
A bunny rabbit with a camera, kind of stuff. I mean, the guy is just, there's nothing. He designed a deep water camera that photographed the first giant squid on video.
I watched that episode. That was actually really cool. That episode was a good one.
Yeah. Doug designed the camera that got that first video, and hell, he's putting together mountain bikes, designing and engineering them. This guy's just fascinating. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, but back to Bigfoot. I just wanted to point out the game camera situation. We still need to tweak it a little bit, but we're getting there.
Yeah, that's great. I think we're going to take a quick break and give you a chance to, catch your breath and
water
stretch your fingers. Yeah.
Stretch your legs for a second.
Sure.
So,
what do you say?
Maybe 5 minutes.
Well, perfect. I'll be standing by.
Awesome. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Project Dark Corona.
Hey, everybody. This is Matt Sieber from EastTennesseeBigfoot.org. You're listening to David and Jason at Project Dark Corona Radio.
do you like the paranormal, cryptids, and folklore? Then join us at Project Dark Corona on Spreaker. We have a live show on Saturday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. We interview the best in all subjects of paranormal and strange. Also, join us on ProjectDarkCorona.org. When you sign up, become a member, you'll get to hear the latest blogs and episodes. Thanks, and remember, Project Dark Corona Podcasts. You're listening to Project Dark Corona Podcast, brought to you by Project Dark Corona. Coming to you live from an undisclosed location deep in a bunker in the Appalachian Mountains, bringing you the strange and unknown with your host, David Reagan and Jason Scott. You're listening to Project Dark Corona Podcast. Right, welcome back to Project Dark Corona Podcast.
Welcome back.
Welcome. We've been talking with Todd Neiss about some Bigfoot.
He's got a lot of good stories.
Yeah.
So we're going to bring him back on. Hello, Todd.
Hey, guys.
Hey.
You pushed 4 of them at the same time, Jason. How'd you do that?
I don't know.
So we are doing something kind of new, and what we're doing is we have been recording all of our shows are on video and uploading them to our YouTube account, and so we're trying to get used to this video thing, you know. It's something to get used to when you're used to sitting behind, you know, back here behind everything and not having to worry about what people are seeing. How are you sitting? Are you looking at the camera? Are you talking to the people? You know, it's crazy.
I'm sure he knows about looking at the camera and stuff. How many shows have you been on?
Oh, wow.
You've been on quite a
in
few.
28 years, just under 30 television shows, documentaries,
Wow.
TV interviews, indie films, and just recently, I kind of decided to, since I'm retired, to up my game a little bit. I kind of prided myself on not soliciting any interviews for 28 years. And just starting in February this year, I thought, you know, people are like, you need to get an agent or something. And I'm like, I don't want to go that way. I'll try to just do some self-promotion. And I've done, I think, I'll have to look, but I think your podcast since February is about the 27th one I've done since February.
Wow.
I've spoke at numerous conferences around the country. Just this year, I spoke twice in Oregon, once in Idaho. I leave this month for Arkansas for a conference, and I've got 3 more set up, Nebraska, Ohio, and Virginia next year. So, so far, we'll see. But I like getting out and meeting people and seeing old friends and enjoy talking about the subject. So, yeah, it's like I said, 25 seconds changed the whole course of my life. I mean, I wouldn't be living where I'm at or married to who I am. My wife has actually been doing Bigfoot research here longer than I have. So combined over 60 years of research between the two of us. So, but I've met some amazing people along the way, and some of you folks might know that I put on an annual conference, very unique compared to any other conferences. In 2008, I decided to, I don't know, I had this thought go through my head, you know, all these people I've met. I knew all the Four Horsemen, Renee DeHinden, John Green, Presser, Grover Krantz, Peter Byrne, and, you know, Jeff Meldrum, of course, and many other folks, published authors and whatnot. I thought, God, what would it be like to get them all together in one place at one time and to just compare notes and get to know each other on a casual basis and share their experiences and network. And so I came up with this idea of putting together a conference to be held in the Oregon coast area, because that's where I had my sighting, and I just euphemistically called it Beachfoot. Play on words, you know, but it's gotten a lot of attention. It's unique in that it's invitation only. It's not open to the public. We don't make money on it. We limit it to 100 people, all of which are researchers. And we've had pretty much everybody who's anybody in Bigfooting attend at one time or another. I think Ron Moorhead and Peter Byrne have not missed one in 14 years.
Wow.
We've already got next year's planned. And it's a great time. I don't really even consider it a conference so much as it is a retreat, if you will, for researchers. And we've had them come from as far away as Australia, England, Russia, New Zealand, and all across the U.S. and Canada. And it's the only conference I know where the speakers, who normally are paid to attend these, like I have in the past, they pay your airfare and lodging and other expenses. And it's the only conference I know where these, you know, well-noted speakers actually pay to attend and speak for free. And it stands to reason, because I mean they're preaching to the choir, so to speak. They're amongst their constituents, and so it's really taken on a life of its own over the years, and it's something I'm very proud of. And if your audience is interested, we do have a Facebook page that's dedicated to Beachfoot. Absolutely. And if you go there, just browse through the photo gallery, you'll see 14 years of conferences and attendees. We've had Dr. John Bender now go there many times before he passed on, and you know, Cliff, Bobo, Tyler Bounds, Kit Morrell. I could go on, but it's just it's a great time, you know.
Yeah.
My favorite part is the evenings where everybody just gets around a bonfire and adult beverage in their hands and kind of let their hair down and have a good time. We have guitars and violins and drums and harmonicas, and we just kind of get down for 3 nights. So it's 4 days, 3 nights, and Yeah,
That's fantastic.
if you're,
Yeah, sounds fun.
yeah, it's a kick in the butt. It's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love, and we enjoy doing it.
Do you ever go to any conferences?
Well, yeah, all the time.
Because we have this year was our third annual here in Tennessee. It was in Gatlinburg, and
yeah, I heard about it.
yeah, it's pretty. This year was really big. I mean, last year, because COVID and all that stuff, it wasn't so big. But a lot of people ended up not showing up as much. I mean, I think we had maybe 1,000 people show up or something. But this year they sold out of tickets, and we had 3 extra tickets, Jason, that we gave away on air. And
who's if I'm correct, the gentleman that puts that on also does the Florida conference. Is that true?
Yes. Yep. Same person.
Who is that?
What is their name? It's
put you on the spot. Well, anyway,
something
Gather Up
Events. Gather Up Events. That's it.
Can't think of the guy's name. We've talked to him before about
I've got it somewhere, but yeah. Well, drop my name. I'd be more than happy to come out and
awesome
and be a part of that.
Yeah, we get to actually meet you in person too. That'd be nice. We usually get us a booth there every year, and do like you said. We like to walk around and talk and meet people, and it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I've probably half the conferences I've gone to. I've spoke at the others. I just like to go, and sometimes it's nice just to be a spectator and not have to pressure speaking and all that. So,
right.
But no, I enjoy them. Like I say, I've got 4 more lined up here in the next few months, and I'll be speaking at those. But I'll be hitting some other ones just to kind of be a fly on the wall.
Right. Be the celebrity that walks in. Everybody's like, "What? Who is this?"
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah.
So, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to ask you, how's the conservancy going and everything, and if you could talk about that for a minute, let our listeners know about your conservancy.
Sure, and we. So the American Primate Conservancy was a combination of 2 different organizations. My wife, prior to my having married her, she was from Florida, so most of her research was aimed toward the skunk ape down that way. And it was called Stalking Hominid Research, which her last name was Stalking at the time, and
I like that. That's a nice.
And
name.
And then I had the American Primate, what do I call it back? The Foundation. And so once we got married, it was like, why should we have, 2 websites, 2 different organizations? Let's just kind of roll them together. And so we kind of changed it up to the American Primate Conservancy, which I think is actually a more apt description, because it's the conservancy part is really our bread and butter. But if I can digress a little bit, we had met through Bigfooting, and obviously, and one year in 2016, I better get that right. We found out that one of our speakers, Professor Redmond Mullis at the time, was also an ordained minister. And so I talked to Diana about it. I go, we've been talking about getting married. I said, how'd you like getting married at Beachfoot?
Oh.
And we talked to to the professor, and he said, "Yeah, we can do that." And so we put it on a schedule as just a special event at 6:30 following our barbecue on Saturday. And we had to rush it. We had 30 minutes before Les Stroud was going to come on and address the group. So wife and I we have a covered area where we do our talks at. The wife and I were on either side of this, out of sight from the group. And Rettman gets up there and he goes, "Most of you know me as Professor Rettman Mullis, but I also wear another hat." And he reaches in his back pocket, pulls out this kind of a sash thing that some ministers wear. You could have heard a pin drop. They're like, "We never had church at Beachfoot," But he just goes, "Todd and Diane, would you care to join me?" And we came up different sides of the shelter there, and again, I think they thought it was a skit or something. I don't know, but they found out real quick we were serious. And man, my God, we saved so much money on invitations, and we had all of our friends and fellow researchers right there.
That's fantastic.
So, well, if you're interested in kind of getting a flavor for Beachfoot, I would tell you, your listeners, to go onto YouTube and look up the Beachfoot 10th anniversary documentary that was done by Rick Riolo. Did a great job, and there's a section in there that talks about the wedding that happened, and pretty proud to say that I'm fairly certain that we're the only ones whose signed witnesses on our marriage certificate are Peter Byrne and Bob Gimlin.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So anyway, but the Conservancy is it's doing well. I need to get on there and update with the website. We've got we're officially a nonprofit organization. We are based on science and education. And we have some great plans, short-term, long-term. The long-term plan is to establish a Bigfoot Interpretive Center up here in the Pacific Northwest that will be quite the facility. It'll be a conference center as well, and have laboratories, libraries, classrooms, course displays, and exhibits and what have you. But that's down the road a little bit. One thing I'm really proud of is that we've been doing some work with Native American tribes, 5 in particular, around the United States. And because I put a lot of credence into Native American
I was going to ask you about that.
Information. Well, yeah, so you look at us Westerners, Europeans, whatever you want to call us, we've been here about 300 years and had multiple experiences with these creatures, and yet the Native American population in North America has now been traced back almost, I think, 19,000 years now.
Yeah.
So you put that on a scale, 300 years versus 19,000 years of having to live symbiotically with these creatures. Native Americans have a whole lot more information and background with these than we do. And one of the things I'm working on when it comes to Conservancy is I'm helping the tribes formulate a draft initiative to at least be able to protect them on their reservations where they have their own autonomy. They get to plan their own, natural resources, guidelines, fish and wildlife and such. And so they can make their own rules within the boundaries of their nations. And they are nations. And So I know a lot of, well, not a lot, but a few people have approached the Fish and Wildlife, or more to the point, the Department of the Interior that runs Fish and Wildlife and the Forest Service and BLM and all that, and they don't even get so far as a hearing on the subject. So our approach is to go through the Native Americans, where it's part of their culture, and help them format an initiative that will have some penalties attached. That if you harass, harm, God forbid, kill one of these things on a reservation, that there's going to be some very severe penalties involved. And it not only protects the creatures, but it also helps validate their tribal customs, their tradition, their culture. So I think once we get these up and going, that it's going to catch on like wildfire between different reservations. They're going to see the power behind it, and then once we get enough on board, we can approach the Department of the Interior and go, look, like it or not, you're surrounded by several dozens, if not hundreds, of reservations, independent nations that have all signed off on this. So it'll hopefully make it a little more palatable for them to accept that. I don't see how they could lose in a proposition like that, other than probably eating a little crow. But I'll tell you what, I've done some research into existing statutes that could give us a little bit of support. The toughest part we have now, I mean, like I said, our 5 tenets with the Conservancy is discovery, research, knowledge, recognition, and protection, and it's got to happen in that order. So the discoveries are happening all the time. Research is being done. Knowledge is being gained. Data points are being measured. Hopefully, we'll get some forensic DNA evidence. I was just shown some hair samples today by a friend of mine that has had some preliminary analysis, and it looks very promising. But short of that, recognition is the toughest part. So the question is there a single body out there internationally that has the authority to make that distinction, to recognize never before recognized species? And the answer is yes. The International Union of the Conservation of Nature, which is based out of Stockholm, Sweden, has been given international approval to do a number of things, one of which is they monitor the health of species of all kinds of different animals, and they actually give them a designation in terms of the health of the species. Somewhere between doing just fine and being extinct, there are 9 different categories in what they call the red list. We're more familiar with things like endangered or threatened, but there's a whole lot more. There's extinct in the wild, where animals are only known only to survive in captivity. Critically endangered, vulnerable or threatened, near threatened, least concerned. But there were 2 categories that jumped out at me that our big guys might fall into. One is called data deficient. And it's defined as saying not enough data to make an assessment of its risk of extinction. Well, that could fit our guys, right?
Right.
The other one is called not evaluated. It says essentially that it has yet to be evaluated against the criteria. But if we focus on that data deficient piece, it says one which has been categorized by the IUCN as offering insufficient information for a proper assessment of the conservation status to be made. This does not necessarily indicate that the species has not been extensively studied, but it does indicate that little or no information is available to the abundance and distribution of the species. And their recommendation is to avoid classing a species as data deficient when absence of record may indicate dangerously low abundance, and threatened status may well be justified. And so that's there. And they're the ones also that are able to attach the binomial species, whether it's a species or subspecies. We look at the binomial that does dual name like Homo sapien or Homo erectus okay. So they have the authority to list species with specific names based on the information they get. And interestingly enough, it was just a few years ago that they, for the first time ever, because normally it takes like a type specimen to be brought in and studied and dissected, and hopefully one of each sex. A few years ago, they actually gave a subspecies status, to an animal strictly based on photographic evidence. Now, granted, it was very clear close-up photography, but never have they accepted the existence of a new species or subspecies on strictly a picture alone. So that kind of gives me hope if we can get something, none of this blob squatch stuff, but get something that's, very definitive. The other thing I looked at too when it comes to protection is the Endangered Species Act of 1973. And a couple things jumped out at me. I'll save your listeners a lot of time of reading through a lot of boring stuff. But two statements that I read in the Endangered Species Act that jumped out at me was, and I quote, "The authority to list a species as endangered and threatened is not restricted to the species as recognized in a formal taxonomic terms." In other words, they don't have to be taxonomically classified in order to be listed, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The second part says that this act is intended to authorize listing of some entities that are not accorded the taxonomic rank of species yet. So there is some avenues that we can throw back in their face and say, well, look, according to the Endangered Species Act 73, you leave open the door for such creatures to exist. And the IUCN, the International Union of Conservancy of Nature, they all as well do. So, but we'll see. I know a lot of people will sit there and say, oh, they don't need our protection. They're doing just fine without us. We should just leave them be. I'm all for that as long as you can answer just a couple little questions like, can you tell me how many there are today?
Right.
Hands, show of hands, right? And if you can you tell me how many there were 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago? Cricket.
Right.
The bottom line is you can have this romantic notion that these things are just doing fine and dandy, but I'd rather err on the side of caution until we do have the statistics. And it may very well prove out that they are doing fine, which would be great. It'd be great news. But in the same token, I want to make sure that my sons, my grandkids, my great grandkids will at least have, albeit, a long shot, but will have at least as good of a chance of experiencing what I experienced 28 years ago tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I would really, it'd be tough to go to my grave not knowing that I didn't do something to help, prolong the species if I can, and to do my part to at least find out really what the health of the species is.
Right.
There again, I hope it is robust, but my gut tells me maybe not so much. So, like I say, until we have that empirical data to back that up, I think it's important that we at least consider that maybe they're not doing so well. Extinction doesn't have to come down to the last of a species dying. Obviously, if you have the last of a species that's, one sex and there's no mating pair, the truth of the matter is when you get below, a little bit below 300 of any species, they are technically extinct.
Yeah.
Because the gene pool has gotten way too small, and that's when you get into genetic defects and compromised immune systems. And so, we've literally watched animals. We have photographs of animals that, 100, 150 years ago we knew existed, and they're gone. They're gone forever.
Right. Well, I mean, just as recent as the black rhino. I mean, that wasn't that long ago, and it's gone now.
Well, the one that jumps out at me was the passenger pigeon.
Yeah.
Back in the 1930s. Now, you have to understand, the passenger pigeons numbered in the billions with a B. And they were shot for sport. And this is going back long before phones, like when they had telegraphs, that a flock would fly over one town and they would just gun them down for whatever, as many as they could kill. And then they'd teletype up to the next town ahead saying they're coming your way and everybody get out their shotgun. Well, it came down to a single bird by the name of Martha. You could look it up. Back in the 30s, Martha was the last of her species known to exist, and only known to exist in captivity.
Right.
And they tried doing hybrids, and they tried crossbreeding, and it didn't work. And the passenger pigeon is one of the few animals that we can say we know the exact date and the exact time of day a species vanished off the planet. And there was nothing they could do at that time.
Well, look,
I don't want that.
Go ahead.
Much of that is due to greed, or just ignorance.
Yeah. The thylacine.
And you almost have to think back if they knew that the demise that was, going to befall that species, they probably would have backed off, but they didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. The thylacine is another one that did pretty much the same thing. Back in the 30s, I think was the last one that they had in captivity, and then it died.
Right, and on a brighter note, there have been some photographs that have surfaced recently from Tasmania that may indicate there's still possibly a breeding pair out there.
Yeah,
but there again, once their numbers get down to a certain percentage, they're pretty much doomed.
Yeah.
Have you seen those pictures?
Yes, I have, and I've I've also watched a few shows like Josh Gates has that show that he does, and he was out and they actually threw up some cams and stuff and was out searching for them and got some pretty positive pictures as far as that goes, showing that there's, very, very possibility some thylacines, and they think that some of them got moved to other areas too.
Well, let's hope so, right?
Right. We have a bluegrass Bigfoot that's in the chat room here. He was wanting to ask, what was that YouTube link showing your wedding?
Oh, so just search for Beachfoot, Beachfoot, 10th anniversary. It's about 40 minutes long, but I'll tell you what, I tell people bring some popcorn and some tissue, some Kleenex, because seriously, it will evoke a huge range of emotions just watching it. I think you'll be amazed at everybody there. And Richter did a tremendous job putting it together. And while you're out there on YouTube, you can also look at the trailer that we put together for Operation Sea Monkey. And it's only a little over 4 minutes long, but we're still trying to cobble that together. We've got so much video to deal with, but we're still hoping to get that out. Or if you just do a search on my name, apparently people have been putting up a lot of the old shows I was on, like Unsolved Mysteries back in '94, and I've never put anything up there, but apparently there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there. Some of the older shows I've done, but yeah, I'd encourage you that Beachfoot 10th anniversary is it's really a fun watch, and it's PG, pretty much.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to watch it.
Yeah.
What time is it, Jason?
Oh, we're over a few minutes.
Are we? We've kept you longer than the 2 hours.
Well, that's all right. I could go on forever. Well, I mean, so many different experiences over 28 years.
That's the worst part
expeditions.
of it. Yeah, that's the worst part of it is that, I love listening to the stories. And I could tell everybody else in all of these other chat rooms that we've got open up do too, because we've not really got any questions tonight from anybody. And that usually happens when everybody's just so interested in in the story that's being told. They're just wanting more stories.
Yeah, I've spent nearly half my life doing this now, and
wow.
There's been so many amazing stories, a lot of funny stories, a lot of crazy things that have happened. I haven't even touched on my investigation out in Nebraska last October.
Oh, wow.
One of the most amazing encounters I've ever had, 5 nights in a row, in fact. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I've got to get back out there. There's
wow, that active, huh?
Yeah, and I really didn't expect that. I had been dealing with this tribe for a couple of years, and they invited me out, and they took me out Monday through Friday every night. Well, I should say morning, because we had started about midnight and worked until 2:30 in the morning, and we had activity every single night. Every single night, and I again, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what I saw, what I heard. But it was in 5 nights in a row and in 2 different locations on the reservation. And maybe we should save that for a follow-up. But
yes.
By far, in the last 10 years, that was one of the most amazing investigations I've ever done, and I gotta get back there and pick that up. But I'm more than willing to come on another time if you guys have time. And I mean, yeah,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you having me on.
We thank you for coming on, for spending your time and everything to come on to our show. I mean, that's we really, really appreciate you for that.
Yep.
And would love to have you
pleasure
on to tell more stories, because your stories are awesome. If you've noticed, Jason and I haven't hardly even talked.
I haven't said hardly nothing. I've just been listening to the good stuff.
Yeah, well,
that's an easy show for us.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed it. Jason and David, you have yourself a good night. I just, if maybe putting out a shameless plug, I may have mentioned it before, but we do have a website, which is AmericanPrimate.org, AmericanPrimate.org. And if anybody wants to contact me directly, my email is wide open. It's AmericanPrimate@AOL.com. And if you have any questions or you want to share a story or whatnot, we treat all information professionally, seriously, and confidentially. And we're just looking for, again, some more data points to try to shore up the information we already have. So, but I've had a great time, and like I said, let's do it again. I'm off for a week of fishing next week, so I'll probably be at a range. But
nice.
Yeah, I got some Mackinac trout calling my name.
Oh,
but
trout.
We'll be in.
Oh yeah,
we'll be in Vegas next week.
Oh,
we got to deliver in Vegas. So
yeah, David.
Well, yeah. Just so you know, it stays there, right?
Right. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Unfortunately, most of the time it's my money.
Yeah, right.
But me and the wife always have a fun time while we're there. So
I've never had a bad time in Vegas.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, good time in Vegas is pretty synonymous, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Todd, for coming on the show, and we'll definitely get back in contact with you. We're trying not to do like we did at the beginning of this year, and we booked ourselves up to, I think it was 8 months ahead. And we're going to try to keep it, within a month, maybe 2 months. And so then that way, people aren't waiting 8 months to come on the show. That's crazy. I think it'll make it better for everybody all the way around.
Sure. That gives you a little flexibility too.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, with me being a truck driver, sometimes we've had to cancel a few shows because I got stuck, like the truck broke down or something happened, and it makes it hard to reschedule when you're like that. So
sure. All right, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's been my honor, and I hope we'll get to meet sometime in person. That'd be great.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, maybe next time we'll have the video all set up where we can actually see each other.
Yeah.
All we're doing now is recording video, so
Well,
we'll get it hooked up.
Modern technology.
That's it.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Yes, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
That was interesting.
That was...
Got a lot of experiences, don't he?
That's a lot. And then we didn't even get into his newer stuff.
I know. That's for next time, though.
Oh, man. That's just for next time. So, that's great. I want to thank everybody that came out into the chat rooms, and thank you, Mudgy, and thank you, Bluegrass Bigfoot, and Anonymouses that are on there. And The anonymouses, if you want. All you have to do is just go and become a member. It's free. Doesn't cost nothing. And you could actually put whatever name, and every time you come in, you could be that name. So,
yes, you could put King of the World or...
That's right. King of Corona. Corona King. But we also are, I don't know if you've heard it. I think we've said it several times, but we are also recording these shows
on video.
Get to see with my radio face. Get to see my radio face on video, and but we'll have those up in our YouTube account.
Oh yeah,
and so you can definitely go watch those also. And we appreciate everybody that watches and listens to us, and without all of you men and women, what we do wouldn't be possible.
Nope.
I mean, we'd just be sitting here talking to ourselves, huh?
I thought that's what I was doing anyway.
But when we first started in 2012,
oh, we got one listener. Look here.
Woo! We got a listener this week. Yeah, it was rough back in 2012. But you know what? It was fun. So, just like it is now. So, anything you want to say, Jason?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And if anybody hasn't voted, please go to project.corona.org. Over on the side there, it says vote for us. It has two different areas where it says vote for us. The very top one is a top 25. Like the last few months, we've been in the top 5. 2 months in a row, we were number 2. We were that close to number 1. And, but it's because, all of y'all voting for us that gets us there. And I want to thank you. And if you haven't voted this month, please vote. The one on the bottom, now this one is kind of special for us. We have been nominated for a couple of awards this year.
Yes.
Yeah. So the first award is, drum roll, please. Brrr, no, we don't have a drum roll, Jason. We got to get us a drum roll, don't we?
Yeah.
We got crickets.
There. Let's do this one.
Oh man, that's a special one.
And the winner is...
Oh, hopefully Project Dark Corona, right?
Yeah.
But no, we've been nominated really for 2. And I mean, the nomination alone is pretty awesome because out of thousands and thousands and thousands of other podcasts, 5 people got nominated for these 2 categories. And one of the categories that we're nominated in is Best New Podcast. And the second is what, Jason? Always ask Jason.
Best Interview.
That's right. Best Interview Podcast.
Yep.
And, again, just the nomination alone is awesome. But if you guys and gals go in and vote for us, then, there's a very good possibility we could take it home.
Yep. Remember, next week on the Saturday show, we're going to have Jen Johns, formerly Jen Devalier. She's a psychic paranormal investigator and author of Dark Night Haunting. See, Life of a Paranormal Investigator. She got married last August, and that's why her name changed to Johns. So she's done podcasts, lectures, and events. She is a psychic and paranormal investigator. And she also does astrology, numerology, oracle, angel, and fairy readings.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Remember, if you want to see what kind of fairy you are, or what kind of fairy you got, what do the fairies do?
The Fae.
The Fae, what
Fae.
do they do?
The Fae, all kinds of stuff. They
Do
play
they-
tricks on you. They kidnap kids. They do all kinds of stuff.
Well, what's a fairy reading?
I don't know. I would be lying if I said I know. But you know what? We're going to find out.
Yeah, we're going to find out.
We're going to find out. So, we want to thank everybody for showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And we really appreciate you more than you'll ever know. That's a fact. And you know what I'm going to do?
What you going to do?
I'm going to do something that we haven't heard of in a long time. If I could find it.
Uh-oh.
I can't find it.
What you going to do?
I was going to find our original song that we used to have to go out with.
Yeah. I've been wanting to hear that.
I can't. It's not here.
What?
It's not here. Why is it not here?
Is it this one? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Project Dark Corona Podcast.
That's not it, but that's a good one though.
That was live. I just did that live.
That was good. You know who that sounded like?
Who?
You. Oh man, I knew I was going to get you on that one. I knew it. I don't know.
So what's up, Mudgy? We need your shirt size, buddy. Bud. You know what I mean? We got a shirt with your name on it.
It says Mudgy.
Yeah, it says Mudgy. Project Dark Corona.
Well, I'm just going to have to play this outro.
All right.
And I'll find the other one. I don't know what happened to it, but our original one was awesome. Jason, just let everybody know, all these intros and outros and stuff we do, Jason is the brainchild behind every one of them. So if you like them, it's Jason. If you don't like them, it's still Jason.
I know he plays that one that I'm got my voice tuned. He's gonna play it again, I bet you.
Yeah,
Oh.
I've got it queued up. It's the first one that's gonna play.
Oh Lord! All right,
You love it. All right, thanks everybody, and we will see you next week. And listen, because we'll have short shows throughout the week. So,
oh yeah, and go to YouTube and subscribe and watch this crazy little videos.
yeah, and tell us what you think about the
I
videos.
know.
What do you think about the backgrounds we find and put on here for you? And
Watch this, everybody. If you're watching a video right now,
you can't watch. Oh yeah,
yeah.
Right.
If they're watching
they're
it right
watching,
now,
yeah.
they'll see this.
Yeah, this would be cool. Watch.
Yeah, watch. Oh, look there. Boom.
Oh, subscribe.
All right.
Love it. All right, we're going out. Everybody have a good weekend.
You're listening to Project Dark Corona.
Welcome to Project Dark Corona. Project Dark Corona presents Project Dark Corona Podcast. Coming to you live from an underground bunker at an undisclosed location deep within the Appalachian Mountains. Bringing you the strange and unknown with your hosts David and Jason. You're listening to Project Dark Corona Podcast.